Hello, welcome to another video. In this video, I'll be talking about my 2015 reading goals. I've got a list of books that I'm planning to read during the year, and I'll also talk about a few other things that'll help me get to my goals for 2015. So let's get started. First up, I'm talking about my TBR jar. In this jar, I've got every book on my shelf that I haven't read yet. So during this year, I'll be pulling one book from the jar each month and reading that book during the month. Next up is my reading challenge list. A friend on Facebook had posted a picture of this reading challenge, and I thought it would be a really good idea to help me achieve my goal of 0 items on my TBR for the end of 2015. So I started plugging in some books, and I'm pretty happy with the selection I'll have this year. There are 50 items on the list, and so that means if I accomplish this whole list, I will have actually read 52 books, and one of the items is a trilogy, so that means there's 2 more books. So there's 52 items in total. Should work out to 1 a week, and if I can stick to that, I should be able to accomplish this goal with no problems. The first item on the list is to read a book with more than 500 pages. So the book I've chosen is to read Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. I've got the first 2 books in the series, and so I wanted to finish the trilogy, and I think this will be a good way to start off my year. Item number 2. Read a classic romance, so I've chosen to read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Item number 3 is a book that became a movie. I've chosen Paper Towns by John Green. The movie will also be coming out sometime soon, so I'm looking forward to that. Item number 4 is a book that's published in the year 2015. Now this book hasn't come out yet as I'm making the video at the end of 2014, but the book I'll be reading to accomplish this goal is the book Fairest by Marissa Meyer. It continues on with the Lunar Chronicles. The next item is to read a book with a number in the title. I've chosen 206 Bones by Kathy Reichs. The next item is to read a book by an author under 30. I chose Looking for Alaska by John Green. He wrote this when he was under 30, so it's counting. Next up is to read a book with non-human characters. I will be reading Infinity by Sherilyn Kenyon, the first book in the Chronicles of Nick series. Next up is a funny book. And Then It Happened, book 9. By M. and L. Wade. I read these a long time ago, and I decided to do a reread of number 9 as it's the newest one I have on my shelf. A mystery or thriller, Judge and Jury by James Patterson. A book with a female author. I've chosen The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. Next up is a book with a one-word title. I've chosen Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Next up is a book of short stories. I've chosen Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Book of Christmas Virtues. Next item on the list is a book set in a different country. I live in Canada, and there aren't that many books set in Canada, so I did something really easy. I picked a book on my shelf, found out where it was set. Will Grayson, it's set in the US. Easy enough. Next item is a non-fiction book. I will be reading Radical by David Platt. My dad actually recommended this book to me, so I'll check it out. Next 2 items are books I don't actually own, but I will be getting my hands on them either via the library or by purchasing them for my shelf. So the first of these 2 items is a popular author's first novel. I'll be reading The Houdini Box, and this is by Brian Selznick, author of The Invention of Hugo Cabret. Second item on that list is a book by an author you love but you haven't read yet, so I'll be reading Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. Next up is a book that someone recommended to. I will be reading the second book in the Artemis Fowl series. Number 18 is a Pulitzer Prize winning book. Now, the Pulitzer Prize winning list isn't that big, so I had to do some searching and discovering and looking at some books, and I chose the book The Color Purple. Next one is a book based on true events, so I will be reading Wartime Princess. This is based on the story of Princess Margaret and Princess Elizabeth in World War II. 20 is a book at the bottom of my to-be-read list. Now, I don't really put my books in order of when I want to read them, but I do know that this next book, It Happened in Italy, is one at the bottom of my list simply because it's a pretty hefty book and it's a bunch of shorter stories, not necessarily one that I'd just sit down and read through. So it's at the bottom, but I'll be reading it this year. Number 21 on the list is a book that your mom loves, so I'll be reading Banner in the Sky. Number 22 is a book that scares you. I'm not into reading scary books, so I chose a book that intimidates me more than scares me, and it intimidates me only because I started to read it a long time ago and stopped because I didn't quite get into it. So I'll be reading The Hobbit. Item 23 is a book that is more than 100 years old, so I'll be reading A Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Next up is a book chosen based entirely on its cover. I ordered this book because I liked the cover, not by any description of the story or anything, so I'll be reading The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. Number 25 is a book you were supposed to read in school but didn't. Now, this one I had a really hard time picking a book for because I read every book I was supposed to. I was kind of one of those nerd people who read all the books, including all the textbooks I was required to in university. So I chose a book that was popular to be read during high school, but I didn't have to read it. So I'll be reading the play Othello by William Shakespeare. Number 26 is a memoir. I've chosen to read An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth by Chris Hadfield. I got this last year for Christmas and still haven't gotten around to reading it, so I'll be reading it. Number 27 is a book you can finish in a day. Well, at the time of filming, I finished 4 books today, so I can read pretty fast if I don't have anything else to do, but I still chose a pretty short one. I chose The Last 13, number 13. It's actually the first one in the series, by James Fellon. A book with antonyms in the title, Fire and Ice, by Shannon Hale. This is part of the series Spirit Animals. Next book is a book set in a place you'd always wanted to visit. So I've wanted to visit London, so I'll be reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Next up is a book published the year you were born. That's in 1989, and I'll be reading the book Wayside School is Falling Down. 31 is a book with bad reviews. I'll be reading Moby Dick. This might be cheating because this is the illustrated version, but it's the version I have, so I'm going to count it. 32 is to read a trilogy. I'll be reading Legend by Marie Lu. I have the first book, but I'll be getting the next 2 from the public library. Number 33 is a book from your childhood, The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. I believe I read this book when I was probably in grade school, but I don't remember if I actually did or not. Next up is a book with a love triangle. All the books on my shelf that have love triangles, I've already read. I don't know what books that I haven't read have love triangles, so I did a Goodreads search, and To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han is one that came up as a book with love triangle in it. Next up is a book set in the future, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Next up is a book set in high school, so for this I'll be reading the 3rd book in the Ghost Girl series, and this is the book called Homecoming. Number 37 is a book with a color in the title. I'll be reading Sapphire Blue. 38 is a book that made you cry. I don't usually cry reading books, so I chose a book that is sad that I haven't read yet, If I Stay. 39 is a book with magic, A Grim Warning by Chris Colfer. It's the 3rd book in the Land of Stories trilogy series. Number 40 is to read a graphic novel. The only graphic novel on my shelf I haven't read is actually my husband's book, The Walking Dead Book 2, so that's what I'm reading. The next one is a book by an author you've never read before. We're reading Talker 25 by Joshua McCoon. I got this book through a giveaway from the YA Bookworm blogger, and I still haven't gotten around to reading it, so I feel like I need to do that. Next up is a book you own but have never read. You could pick basically any book for this, so I chose Inescapable by Nancy Mell. 42 is a book set in your hometown. My hometown doesn't have very many people, and books aren't usually set in small town Manitoba, so I chose a book actually based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it's actually written by a friend of mine. Swing for the Fences by Gilly Bronstein. Next up is a book originally published in a different language. I'll be reading the 3rd book from the Ruby Red trilogy, Emerald Green. Number 45 is a book set during Christmas. We've got A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Number 46 is a book by an author with the same initials as you. I'll be reading Peter Pan by J. M. Barrie. Number 47, a play, Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. Number 48, a banned book, 1984 by George Orwell. Number 49, a book based on or turned into a TV series, Heat Rises by Richard Castle. And last but definitely not least on the list is a book you started but have never finished. This is the Book of Fairy and Folk Tales of Ireland, and it's compiled by W.B. Yeats, and I picked it up in Ireland when I was there a couple summers ago. Just never finished it yet. I'm about halfway done, and I'll be finishing this. So there you have it. That's my reading challenge for 2015. I've got my TBR jar every month, which is 12 books. I've got my 52 from my reading challenge. Add that together, I've got 64 books I'm planning to read this year. I would like to ideally finish 90 books in the course of the year, but we'll see what happens. That's all for today. I will see you next time. Until then, keep your nose in a book.